Sharkey here again in the Sharkey shed, and I'm going to make another piece of fabric. I thought today I would make a piece a little bit different spin on the last one. Same techniques, sort of, and you can look at the first videos for some of the steps, but today I'm just going to get into the designing and playing with the textures. I've got a black background and I've stabilized it, and you'll see the stabilizing ideas on the other video that's on my YouTube channel. And I have chopped up some fabrics that are all black. This is a nylon fabric that is black, and I have a silk fabric that's black. I also have some lace with a black lace with a silver tinsel through it. These will come up better when I show you getting them on there. And I also have a fabric that's like a lurex fabric, like a costume dance dress fabric. So they're the four fabrics. They're all in the black tone, of course. And that'll become apparent once I get the surface designed, and then I'm going to take you through the next step of why I'm doing this. I often just texturize fabric in the colors of the fabric because it just gives that texture of the fabric in the color range, as well as just texturizing it and making it look interesting. So I'm going to start with the silk, because this is the silk fabric on the background. I'll just put some of the silk on. So just the silk, and spread it out. I don't mind if I'm not really going to be like the last video, more or less painting with it. This is really about just putting an even coverage over it in the different black. They have different ingredients as per se. They have shine. The silk's a little bit flatter than the nylon one. So you get different variations in the black tone as well. So that's just making sure there's coverage right to the edge of the piece, and then it becomes a usable surface for afterwards. And you can do this same sort of idea with lots of other colours, of course. When I'm making my waratah flowers or poppy flowers, I'll make red fabric, so red background, then red textures on surface, and I'll put velvet and different things in it so that I get different ingredients in the surface. The lace with the silver through it just gives a bit more of an interesting, and you don't have to have it, of course, it's just my glitzy idea. Adding a little bit of light as well with that metallic thread through the lace that I cut up, and then the one that has the costume, very metallic. So just playing with those ideas. So that just shows you a little bit of how I'm going to make this piece of fabric. Okay, so I've got a good coverage there. I'm going to use the water soluble to trap all that down and stitch it again. But this time I thought I'd do a different step. So I'll just get that sorted, and then I'll show you that next step when we get back. Okay, so I've collected some fabrics just to have a little look at, and then I'm going to show you what this project's leading to. I buy fabrics from most of the shops that I travel to, of course, like we all do, and work at. So I have a broad collection of different ones, but I'm always looking at what's in the fabrics to cut out the designs, because I don't do normal patchwork or piecing, those sorts of things. I'm always looking at the design and the colour and the textures that I get in those fabrics. You know, just interesting areas, and cutting them up to use those designs in my work and onto my fabrics. So just to give you a little bit of an idea on some of the fabrics in the stash that I've collected, that I cut from and use. These two here are relevant to this project, although the main fabric I've cut it all up, so I'll just show you the bits of it. But these ones I've added in as well, so you'll be able to see, you know, the designs in these. I cut all of this fabric up and use the designs and cut into the designs and then layer the designs on top of each other, and it's endless what you can do. And then using a fabric that's, you know, a pattern like this that's got some amazing, interesting design lines in it, and then cutting designs from that as well. My shapes and things from that as well. So they're a couple of the fabrics. So what I've got here is a fabric that I've cut up, and I've cut multiples from a particular fabric and some of this one here. So you'll see, you know, some of the designs coming out in those, just to show you how I cut them up and cut right into them. But I just, and so all of these fabrics have been stabilised, like the backing fabric of our piece that we started with. And that stabiliser has been ironed onto the back of the fabric, and then I cut them all out. So I end up with these motifs of the fabric. So I cut away the background design or the background colours and cut that design out of them. But then I cut into the background as well and just cut designs out of that so that I don't waste any of that fabric. So there's constantly bags and bags of fabrics cut, ready to go all the time for other projects, and because it's interesting fabric, that's what I like to start creating. Okay, so and then I just cut, like I said, around those designs just to get out what I want for the project. And this particular piece of fabric, I think I bought a metre, and I've cut it all up. But the flower was what caught my eye. So this flower was always going to be some sort of a design that I would use in a piece. I didn't quite know what, but that's why I've made just a plain background today, plain black background, so that I can make these really pop on that design. These leaves I'm incorporating as well. And they're from that other fabric that I showed you. It's stabilised with a stabiliser, which is an iron-on stabiliser that holds the fabric really nice and tight. And when I layer them onto the surfaces, they hold their shape. They hold what I'm cutting. So at this one, I'm just cutting them freeform from the design so that I'm getting lots of that beautiful patterning coming through in the shapes as I'm going. So, and those bits there that are left, I will certainly cut those into something as well. You know, I can get down to the smallest spots sometimes, or little piece. Okay, so I've collected all my stash. I've got them all prepared and I've got them laid out. I've laid out the fabric before, and I've started to place the design on it. So this is just another idea of making a piece of beautiful fabric, and this will take on its own design of what it will look like. I don't have any perceived idea of what I'm doing with it, but I certainly know what stash I collected to create this piece. So, you know, the fabrics that I've picked up, the designs that I'm incorporating, and, you know, spreading around in this piece are certainly part of the play and the excitement of how this fabric can come together. So these are all parts of the fabric. And like I said, these flowers were really what drew me to this piece of fabric. So they're really the champion of the piece. I will lay out, you know, some of the smaller components that I've cut from the background to bring together the design and also to, you know, decorate that background fabric. And yes, some of it's getting covered, but I just think what you will see and what comes from the background will just pop these beautiful fabrics on the surface. And I guess it's just another example of my love of beautiful fabric and how we can change, you know, what's there, what we can make it our own and have some fun with it and really enjoy the process and make it fun and easy as well. You know, like I always love when ladies come to class and they achieve, you know, an outcome and they're really, really excited about it, and that makes me happy as well. You know, it's really something that I think drives what us, you know, textile teachers and artists do when we, you know, teach and what we share, what we love, our passion. So just pretty much, I mean, I can get a bouquet of flowers in a vase and really stumble, but when I'm playing with fabric and I'm laying out, you know, beautiful surfaces, I really enjoy that so much more. And I think that comes from just play and collecting lots of beautiful fabrics around you and, you know, enjoying the process and not worrying too much about it. I mean, I'll often say to ladies in class when it's laid out, whatever we're doing, I'll say, you know, take a photograph with your phone and see what it looks like, what it's like when it's looking back at you. And often that will really highlight some of the things that may need a little bit of tweaking or changing. And it's as easy as that really sometimes, and that keeps us all happy. So yes, I've filled this really well, and I often do when I'm making a sample. I say to ladies in class as well, you know, like there's no pulling back when I'm playing and demonstrating. And this feels like I'm in the classroom, so it's really great, especially with this lockdown and being isolated from all of our friends and family, our loved ones, also our tribe. That's also something that's been really difficult to not be able to connect with the people that you work with and for. Has been quite an interesting change in perception of, you know, how we do work. So yeah, it's been a trial, emotional roller coaster, but also time to take stock of, you know, where things are going and what's happening and how we're going to continue when this is all over, whenever that will be. Okay, so I think I've really filled that piece. Really love the look of all of those designs. They're sitting on the surface of all of those cut up fabrics. So it's starting to look like a whole new design, which is my aim, you know. I try to make things, yes, we have those things available, but I like to try and just mix it up a bit so that it's more mine, I guess, and able to play with. So now, as before, making a piece of fabric like this, once I've got all that down, the only difference this time is I've put all these designs in on that surface. I will stitch it the same way, cover it and stitch it the same way, then wash it the same way. But I'll do that process as well. That'll probably be in the next video. And so at this stage, I'm going to cover that again with the water soluble. So the water soluble, being careful not to mix up my designs because I've got them all laid out. So I'm going to pin this the same again around the edges. And the difference this time is not pinning it in an organic sort of fashion through the middle to hold it all flat. I'm actually going to make sure I really pin, especially those big pieces that I can see. I'm going to pin those down, and a lot of the time that will hold all the little pieces together as well, flat on the surface, so that it doesn't all bag out in the middle when I take it to the machine. And yes, I can have it on my big table with my Q20, the Benina Q20, but if you're on a domestic machine, that's fine too. So you just make sure that you either have a smaller piece to start with, just to play with, or you know, free up your table so that you can lay it on the table as flat as possible, because you don't want these shapes to move necessarily. And if you get some movement, well, that's just a design feature, isn't it? You can always fix something like that afterwards. This is quite an organic way of creating, and we often learn from those little hiccups along the way. So the main thing is that we have the pins right around the edge directionally on that side, on the sides, so that we hold all of those clippings inside that bag of the background and the water soluble cover that I've put on at the moment. So I'll keep pinning this, and then I'll get ready to sew, and I'll come back to you in a little while. Okay, so I've brought it to the machine, and I have started a few of the stitches. Now I've got black thread on the top of the machine and the bottom of the machine. I've got the darning foot on, or the number 9 closed toe foot that I use, and I've started stippling over the surface. Now I'll just keep going and show you a little bit of when I come up to some of the designs. Most of them I go over completely, so I just disregard that they're there, the smaller ones in between. But when I come to the big ones, because I can see them, I've just been catching the edge of these, just to incorporate them into the fabric. I mean, the black thread would have gone over the top of them all and, you know, been quite acceptable. But I just thought, well, I'll just see what happens. Now you could actually stitch these pieces back on the surface afterwards. So you make your piece of fabric, design, you know, with all your applique, lay them all out on the surface and stitch them all down. This actually ends up being a little bit more organic as far as how they're stitched down. While I'm stitching the surface, I actually will stitch into what I can see in some of the larger pieces. So just to hold them down a little bit more on the inside edges, but just catching the outside edge as far as getting them to stay underneath. I also have thoughts of creating some 3D pieces to sit into the centres of the flowers and the larger pieces. So that might actually eventuate down the track. But at this point, my aim is to connect this piece of fabric back together and then wash it out, wash the water soluble away, as I did in the last video, just so that I can then have a look at what I've created and decide, you know, how that might be incorporated into my work or into a piece. I imagine it's going to be a freestanding, standalone piece, just being more abstract as a design piece of fabric, but
My work's fairly organic like that too. I don't necessarily always use them how I start out. So stitching this completely through all of the pieces, all of the layers, and then getting that all stitched down, and then I can wash it. So completely stitching from edge to edge, and that will then enable all of that to stay together. A new piece of fabric's made, new beautiful piece of fabric's made, and then it'll go and get washed so the water soluble dissolves off the surface, and then I'll make my decisions on the next stage. So I'll leave it at that for now. The washing of this piece is a couple of rinses in a warm wash. I don't use detergent or anything. I just have a clean wash, and then just a normal water wash, and then wring it out, get it dry, survey the surface, see what I want to add to it, what I might want to, keep stitching in over that edge. So yeah. I hope you enjoy making another piece of fabric with a little bit of a spin on the first fabric that I made. And there's lots more variations that I hope in coming weeks that I'll be able to add to the process. So keep checking in and leave a message. It's nice to connect, meeting lots of new people, and really enjoying that connection. And I'd love to see your work as well. I'm on Instagram and Facebook. My website is www.textileretreats.com.au. And I have a little section on that website where I talk about why I use the fabrics I use, and that chopping up fabric process. There's some different ideas on that. So stop by, stay safe, and I'll catch up again soon. Bye.